Jim Irwin. Thank you, President Wolf and UAW Local 677 for hosting this event. Before we get started tonight, I got to read a little something. There's so many people in here that the UAW has a policy, so just bear with me. Welcome to the UAW Local 677 Hall. I need to go over a couple safety protocols with everyone. In the event of an emergency, please exit in an orderly manner. Gather at the far ends of the parking lot until emergency responders arrive. There are exit points in the back, the left and the right. If medical attention is required, please bring this to the attention of the host and give appropriate space to the person in need. Please silence your cell phones and other devices. Please hold all questions until asked by the speaker, and no smoking is permitted in this building. Please exit the building if you need to smoke. And do not throw the cigarette butts on the ground due to high winds and dry weather. So with that being said, before we get started tonight, I would like to recognize some of the labor-friendly elected officials and candidates that are here with us. The Mayor of Allentown, Matt Turk, is here. State Senator Nick Miller. Northampton County Executive Lamont McClure. The state reps, Pete Schweier, and this is his district. Josh Siegel. And Jeannie McNeil. Also, we have some candidates that are here in attendance. Stephanie Rafes, she's running in the 187th. Anna Thomas. And Jared Bidding. And you'll also hear from Delaware Senator Chris Coons and Congresswoman Susan Wild. I'd like to give a shout out to all the union members who came out tonight to support the labor-endorsed candidates and secure a win on Tuesday. Also, Secretary-Treasurer of the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO, Maurice Cobb, is here. And I just want to put a plug out there. Tomorrow, there's a labor walk at the Teamsters Hall, Local 773. We got buses coming in. We need drivers if anyone wants to come out and help. 9:30 for the drivers, 10 a.m. for the walk. And Jeremy from AFSCME is here. Right here, if you want to do that, see him. He'll sign you up. He'll get your information. And I'd like to introduce our first speaker, the president of the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO, Angela Farida.
Well, thank you, Jimmy. Brothers and sisters, it is so great to be here back with all of you in Allentown. I am Angela Farida, and I am the president of the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO. And I want to talk about why we're at a turning point for our families across Pennsylvania. We have a fight ahead of us, a fight for our rights, our jobs, and our future. And I know we're ready for it, because here in Pennsylvania, we stand together, we fight together, and we win together. Growing up in Erie, I saw firsthand what unions mean to working families. Unions put food on the table. They send kids to college, allow people to retire with dignity. They build our communities, and they still are building our communities. But I also saw what happens when unions are undermined. When Donald Trump was president, he attacked our jobs, our security, and our dignity. And now that he's running again, we not only have the benefit of hindsight, we also hear his anti-worker, anti-union rhetoric throughout this state on a daily basis. He has bragged about hating to pay overtime. He has laughed about firing striking workers. He's even said that auto worker jobs could be done by children. And he has threatened to defund our schools if he personally didn't agree with their free speech. No way. That's right. That's not someone who respects our dedication and skill. That's not someone who respects everything that unions have done for working people, whether they're union or not. That's someone who either doesn't understand or doesn't care about the sacrifices working people make every day to keep this country going. I have been in Pennsylvania long enough to know that the candidates who value unions are the candidates that are going to deliver results for people in our Commonwealth. And this year, those candidates are Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Both of them have always backed unions, and they recognize that we are the backbone of our economy. They support the PRO Act, which will strengthen collective bargaining for over 300,000 workers in Pennsylvania. They understand that when unions thrive, we all thrive. Under Trump, Pennsylvania lost thousands of manufacturing jobs. Despite his promises, he prioritized corporate interests, and working families paid the price. Manufacturing towns across our state suffered as plants closed and livelihoods were lost. Harris and Walz are committed to bringing back manufacturing and making sure that they are good union jobs. And thanks to the critical votes by Vice President Harris, Pennsylvania has seen $4.3 billion in new manufacturing projects in just the past 2 years. I know that she will continue to build on this progress, investing in key industries and ensuring that those jobs come with union protections. Brothers and sisters, Trump had his chance, and he failed us. This election is about our rights, it is about our jobs, and it's about our security. We need leaders who will fight for us and lift us up. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are those leaders. We cannot afford to sit this one out. Every single vote counts, and it's our responsibility to make sure that our families and our friends and neighbors know what's at stake. The choice is clear: Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So let's keep fighting for our futures, for our families, and for the dignity of every working person in Pennsylvania. And now I'd like us to give a big Pennsylvania welcome to our leader from the National AFL-CIO, President Liz Schuler. Liz?
All right. Hello, Labor family. Hello, Allentown and Lehigh Valley. Are we fired up tonight? Are you all ready to vote? Yes. Are you all ready to win? Yes. Thank you, because because you're the ones who've been doing all the hard work to get us there. And I am so proud to be here. And I want to thank Jim, of course, from the Lehigh Valley CLC for welcoming us this evening. UAW 677, thank you so much, Scott, for hosting us here tonight. This is the center of gravity for the community, so we appreciate you. And I just want to say, are we ready to make Kamala Harris the next president of the United States? And she's actually here with us, did you see? In cardboard form, thank you. So I just want to say, look at this stage behind me, because you have the national leaders of the labor movement of this country on this stage here in Allentown. And you're going to hear from them. Thank you, April, Lee, Randy, Becky. We are so proud to be here. And I was thinking to myself, well, why are we here, right? We're in Allentown. It's kind of unexpected. And why is that? Yes, we love a good swing state. Don't get us wrong. But it's because Allentown is the heart of the American manufacturing renaissance. I thought back to when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were first elected. Do you remember this? One of the first stops they made was coming to Allentown to Mack Truck, right? They came here in the Lehigh Valley to launch the Buy America investment, the Make It in America investments. And I think about all those good union jobs that they were talking about in 2021. And think, fast forward to today, right? They went back and they actually did what they said they were going to do. They walked the walk and they passed an infrastructure bill. They passed investments in clean energy, and they brought jobs to this community. You think about the broadband investments, and I'm looking at Senator Coons and, of course, Senator Casey, who we all know in Pennsylvania played a huge role in that. Revitalizing this community and communities across the Commonwealth. And it has been a story of a manufacturing renaissance, but really job creation. I think it's 32,000 new jobs across this state. And 2,700 right here, or it's 30, I think it's 32,000 actually just in this area. 2,700 manufacturing jobs alone. Think about that. And all of that progress is on the line, folks. All of that progress is on the line, and that's why we're here. Because we know that Donald Trump will take us backward. And we are not going to let that happen. He actually lost 23,000 manufacturing jobs during his tenure, and all he wants to do is cut taxes for his rich friends, right? And, of course, his billionaire friends like Elon Musk. Anybody know Elon Musk? Well, I heard that Elon Musk came into the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and decided that he was going to try to buy votes in Pennsylvania. Are we going to let that happen? No. He can go ahead and hand out $1 million checks, right? He's actually paying people to register on his website, which is illegal, by the way. And he thinks he can just, get people to look the other way at the shiny object so that we can not think about Donald Trump and all that he's done to working people in this country. We know better. We know what Donald Trump has done and who he really is, don't we? He can dress up and work the drive-through lane at McDonald's all he wants, pretend to be a working-class hero, sit in a garbage truck, pretend to be a worker. By the way, that E. coli breakout at McDonald's happened 24 hours after his shift, by the way. So every American needs to ask themselves the question, which side are you on to these candidates? Which side are you on? Are you with the billionaires like Elon Musk who want to gut our unions? Are you with the guy who wants to get rid of our overtime? Are you with someone who's running the oldest playbook, this divide and conquer playbook. Are you going to stand for that? We are so sick of that playbook where they're saying our immigrant brothers and sisters and siblings are from islands of garbage. We are not going to stand for it. Telling women that he's our protector. That we shouldn't get to make decisions about our own bodies. I mean, come on. We are so sick of it. Or are you ready to stand with Kamala Harris and our union brother, Tim Walz? Are you ready to stand with leaders who walk our picket lines instead of cross them? Are you ready to stand up as part of this coalition that is going to listen to working class people and protect our freedoms and make it easier to live our lives and dream big and have a good life? 4 days, folks. That's all we've got left is 4 days. Are you ready? So I know many people here, almost everyone here has probably walked a picket line at some point. Raise your hand. Yeah, you walked a picket line. And what do we know about a picket line? It's not just about us, right? It's not just about us. It's about the person standing next to you. It's about the workers who have not even been born yet. It's about them having a future, them having something better. Because we stood up today and we fought for that tomorrow. Well, that is what this election is about, folks. That is what we are going to show the next 4 days. And we can tell Elon Musk, you know, you can spend every dollar you want. You cannot do what we do. You cannot do what we do. Because we have trust. We know how to talk to voters, right? You cannot buy trust and credibility. It is not for sale. So let me ask you, are you ready to get out the vote? Are you ready to elect Kamala Harris the next president? Let's go make history. Thank you, Allentown. And now, the moment you have all been waiting for. We have a special guest with us tonight. He has traveled in from the great state of Delaware, which we all know very well, who has been a tremendous partner, of course, to our president, Joe Biden, who is the most pro-union president in our lifetimes, and the Senator Chris Coons from the state of Delaware, who has delivered for working families time and time again. So let's give it up for Senator Coons.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, everybody. Is there anybody in this house tonight who cares about unions and union rights? Is there any union member in this house tonight? Anybody? Thank you, Liz, and thank you to all the brothers and sisters of organized labor, the international presidents, those who are hosting us here in your local, those who are the supporters of everything you've gotten done. I want to tell you briefly about two people I love and two people I'm not so high on. That guy, Donald Trump, working in the drive-thru window, he's a couple fries short of a Happy Meal, that one. And he might be able to fake like he's worked a trash truck one day in his life, but he couldn't do a whole shift, let alone a double. This is a guy who was born on third base and wants you to believe he hit a triple. He inherited from his dad a real estate portfolio that he has poorly managed, and he has gotten ahead by cheating and shorting and scheming and grifting. And why on earth we would let him do that again as our president is beyond me. There's also this other guy. His name's David McCormick. He's a lovely, nice guy from Connecticut. He might have been born here, but he is commuting here. Now, I know something about that. I commuted here from Delaware. But you shouldn't elect me to the U.S. Senate for Pennsylvania. Let me tell you something about Bob Casey. My wife Annie's from Lancaster, and we love Bob and Therese Casey. They are good people. Pennsylvanians have been voting for Casey for 50 years. This is a man who understands in his bones what it means to fight for working people. And next year, we're going to have a fight, and a big one, over taxes. Because the only big thing that Donald Trump got done, the only promise made and promise kept with that guy was to cut taxes. He cut taxes for the richest Americans and the wealthiest corporations. And he wants to do it again. And what's it going to cost you? It's going to cost trillions in money taken away from a potential child tax credit, from helping us care for our parents, our kids, our disabled family members. The tax credit that puts the affordable in the Affordable Care Act, that has allowed more Americans to have health insurance today than at any time, all of that's on the chopping block. And let me tell you about Bob Casey. He fights like hell to make sure that we care for each other, that we invest in each other, that we have a community and a society and jobs that are good to build families on. I want Bob Casey in that room fighting for all of us and not Dave McCormick. I've had a great couple of days going from Altoona to Hazleton, from State College to York, to be here in Allentown with you in the Lehigh Valley. But I want you to remember one thing. In 2020, was it close? No. How close was it here in Pennsylvania? Out of 6.8 million votes cast, it was less than 1%. We came in just right barely over the water. And by every poll I see as a co-chair of the Harris-Walz campaign, that's where we are again. And you know what's going to make the difference? You. Absolutely you. So, folks, for the love of God, our republic was born in Pennsylvania. Do not let it die in Pennsylvania. Fight for it in Pennsylvania. Work for it in Pennsylvania. Vote for it in Pennsylvania. Knock on doors, call your friends, text your family, and make damn sure they come out and vote Democrat. Now, I want you to think about something with me. Think about Thanksgiving. Not the folks you want to show up, but the folks who could show up. The folks who, if they show up, you're going to let them in. I don't know about you, but I got a couple folks showed up at last Thanksgiving, going to show up at next Thanksgiving, who voted for Trump. Blood relatives, some of them. Please, take those extra 5 minutes. Have the conversation with your classmate, with someone you grew up with someone who's related, with someone in your union who you think might be going the wrong way. Because at the end of the day, what makes a difference with the folks who haven't made up their mind isn't all these ads on TV, isn't all the blah, blah on radio, isn't folks from the Senate coming and saying hello. It's you. It's someone they respect, someone who can say, look, I know the actual record, the promises made and the promises not kept by Donald Trump, the promises made and the promises kept. Let me tell you about the other person I love, because I told you two I'm not so wild about, and Bob Casey. I love Joe Biden. I love Joe Biden. I don't know about you, but I absolutely love Joe Biden. I have worked with and for Joe for 35 years. I succeeded him in the U.S. Senate. He is the most compassionate, caring, decent, hardworking man I've ever known in public service. And he is the most pro-union president in our history. So I was just up in Scranton a couple of weeks ago, and it was not long after we shifted from Joe to Kamala as our nominee. And I said, how do you all feel about this? And there wasn't as warm a response as I was kind of hoping for that night. And someone in the back said, will you tell Joe we love him? And I said, absolutely. And someone else said, how's he doing? And I said, this is simple. If we lose, it will kill him. Literally. Literally. If we win, he will be great. He will be happy. He will be excited. He will have made the most important choice in choosing Kamala as his partner, his running mate, and his successor, and in handing to her the incredible ground game that together we have built here in Pennsylvania to elect the next most pro-union president in our country. So let me just say this. It's all on the line, folks. You've got to take the mask off of Donald Trump. Halloween is over. It's time to get past the trick or treat and make sure that folks who know you and love you and care about you hear from you the reality that Trump is a scab, that he's a fraud, and that he is not for working people. Somehow the idea of this guy sitting on a gold toilet on Fifth Avenue in $1 million house as a billionaire really cares about working people doesn't quite hold true when you ask people to think about it. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris grew up middle class, have spent their whole careers in public service, teaching, serving, leading. They will be a great president and vice president for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and our whole country. And folks, you hold that future in your hands. You know, when he got elected in 2016, that other guy, he inspired a whole generation of new leaders to come up and step forward and take on incumbents and take on tough races. And I am so blessed to have a chance to introduce to you one of the 4 incredible House members that changed the balance of power in Pennsylvania and the balance of power in the Congress of the United States. Susan Wild represents this area and this valley. She's smart, she's tough, she's seasoned, she's ethical, she's pro-labor, and she deserves your attention and your vote. Ladies and gentlemen, Congresswoman Susan Wild.
Well, hello, everybody. Let me just tell you, I started today with organized labor, and I'm ending today with organized labor. I was out at the UPS facility with the Teamsters this morning. I'm thrilled to be here with all of you today, this evening. And let me just say, I might get a little bit choked up here. I really love you all. I have to tell you, campaigns are really tough business. And you get to listen to all these lovely, horrible commercials about yourself, which I'm sure everybody in this room has seen, the ones about me. And, you know, you do get a thicker skin after a while in this job, but it gets to you after a while. It really gets to you. So when you're surrounded by people that you feel are not only supportive, man, the first time I saw one of those pickup trucks with the big Susan Wild thing that Fran had over the other day at I saw Fran a minute ago, but anyway, I got choked up. That was like, that made up for months of the crap that you put up with in a commercial. Being here with all of you and just knowing how hard you all fight for what you do, how hard you fight to be in a union. I mean, it just means the world to me. Liz, you asked people how many of them had ever walked a picket line. Well, I've walked a picket line with a number of you. And first time I ever walked a picket line, I was, I think, in 6th grade with my mom, who was on strike from what was which at the time she was with the Newspaper Guild, which probably would be CWA or something now, but her newspaper that she worked for went on strike. By the way, it never came off strike. They employed scabs for the longest time, and eventually that newspaper went out of business. It was one of the major Los Angeles newspapers. So I saw firsthand, and when I went to strike headquarters with her almost every day, and I remember sitting there, and there were the guys that run the printing presses, everybody, you know, up and down the chain in a newspaper was there. And talking to them, it was kind of exciting for me because there were always free donuts. remember, I was in 6th grade, and there were typewriters, the old-fashioned kind of typewriters, and I got to use the typewriters, and it was really pretty exciting for me. But, you know, that experience is something that I will never forget, and just talking to all those people and hearing from them, and knowing that for months and months and months, they were on strike. Some of them went on to they had no choice but to find new jobs. Some of them just stuck it out as long as they possibly could. And it was, you know, I kept asking my mother on the way home, so what are they doing to get paid? Like, how are they getting paid? And I had a big lesson from my mom in all those days. But I just want to tell you, as your member of Congress here in the Lehigh Valley for the last 6 years, and it's kind of hard for me to believe it's been that long, it has been one of the greatest honors, and well, it is the greatest honor and privilege of my life to represent this area. And I am incredibly proud to say that I have been on the Education and Labor Committee since the day I got there. Randy Weingarten's been there, I don't know how many times to testify, you know, and let me tell you, in the last Congress, which was the let's get a whole lot of stuff done Congress, when the Democrats were in the majority, we had hearings about things like how are we going to save pensions from the pension funds that were going belly up. We had hearings about things like how can we make it easier to organize. We had hearings about public schools and what we need to do to support our public schools. And now in this Congress, under the GOP majority, the do-nothing Congress, the hearings have devolved into things like our educators are going to turn all our children trans. And eat, during lunch with your stapler and Scotch tape. And by the way, most of you buy your own supplies for your classroom, so I guess you're gonna buy those supplies too for those surgeries and stuff. I mean, talk about disrespectful. Talk about disrespectful. To me, I thought after COVID, when people's kids started learning at home online, when parents were like, oh my God, so now I know what teachers do all day long. And, you know, everybody was like, get them back to school, get them back to school. I thought for sure the public school teachers were going to get more respect in the long term. But unfortunately, we're right back to disrespecting public schools and public school teachers. And it's worse. And, you know, to me, that's just shameful. I just want to tell you, so some of the things that we've worked on, that I worked on in the last Congress that I was so proud to vote for, that got signed into law by President Biden, and yes, he deserves a huge round of applause every time you hear his name. Some of the things that we got done that he signed into law, he was so proud and so careful to make sure that labor, organized labor, was protected in those bills, that when we were infusing infrastructure, when we were infusing our manufacturing sector with federal resources, that we weren't going to do it without making sure that organized labor was part of those contracts. And so, listen, I think we need to do more of that. I really do. You know, I'm tired of organized labor being treated like the boogeyman. Like they're somehow bad for America, right? All of y'all are bad for America. When I get an endorsement from a labor union, and I'm really proud to say I think I've been endorsed by all of them at this point, but then somebody from the Republican Party will say, you know, there she is in the pocket of labor again. And I stop and I think, you mean like I'm in the pocket of ordinary working folks who actually work for a living? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that I'm supported by all of you. And so I just think that this idea that labor is the boogeyman, and I will tell you, I was starting to talk about this Congress, the Do Nothing Congress, where my Education and Labor Committee, as soon as the Republicans took the majority, they renamed it the Education and Workforce Committee, because God forbid it should have the word labor in the title. And as soon as we take back the majority in January, it's going to go back to being the Education and Labor Committee. We have had multiple hearings about how hard it is for corporations to get ahead because of labor, and why we've got to stop labor from having meetings on site and not making sure that we interrupt the flow of their ability to organize. Well, the hell with that. You all should have the right to organize in your workplace. Because let me tell you, management organizes in the workplace, and you should too. So I will tell you, I will always be a friend to labor. A lot of my staff are here, and just they're amazing. Let me just say, I think we are considered one of the most labor-friendly offices on Capitol Hill. That to me, that label is something I'm incredibly proud of. But when votes come up that may in some way affect labor or even non-labor working folks, okay? And I think it's really important to say this, because all of y'all, you lift up everybody. You lift up every worker, whether they've joined a union or not. And people often forget that a lot of what they are getting in the workplace, if they're in a non-union place, is because of the efforts of labor. And quite frankly, because a lot of their places of work want to try to keep labor away. They don't want their workers to join a union, so they'll boost them up a little bit to try to be competitive with all of you. But voting for the PRO Act, I was one of the original co-sponsors. We had hearing after hearing about why it was so important. We're going to do it again next year. We're going to get that thing passed again, and we're going to make sure that every single worker in this country has the ability to join a union if they choose to. But I was saying for a minute there about my team in Washington, when a vote comes up and I see that it's going to affect labor or it's going to affect working folks, the very first question I ask when I either call my office or I'm sitting in my office before we go to vote, I go, what have we heard from labor? And they know. I mean, usually they've already sent it to me. If we've got a labor from the AFL, if we've got a labor from AFSCME, a letter from AFSCME, they will tell me. They know that's what I want to hear about. But just in case, I always say, what are we hearing from labor? And it's just incredibly important to every single one of us in my office that we support all of you the way you support the working class in this country. And without going on too much longer, because I know you got a lot to do tonight, but I just, I love to just be all peaches and roses up here, but I have to tell you a little bit about my opponent.
Mackenzie's an asshole.
Thank you. You said it, not me, but when he first announced his candidacy, but this I think was maybe right after he won the primary, maybe before, I can't tell you how many labor folks I heard from who said to me, oh my God, he's horrible for labor.
Terrible.
And so, I don't even know who my choir is up there, but, he's staunchly anti-worker. He's staunchly anti-union. His campaign is one of the ones that has been backed the most by the Koch brothers. They're super PAC, Americans for Prosperity. So if you see and by the way, a lot of those commercials against me are either from the Congressional Leadership Fund, which is not a nice group, even though that sounds like a nice thing, or Americans for Prosperity. They are all about right-to-work laws. They are all about right-to-work for less laws. And he, in the state legislature here in Pennsylvania, has taken multiple anti-worker, anti-union votes. He has, he stood in opposition to a state infrastructure bill that would have created tens of thousands of new jobs right here in Pennsylvania before we in Congress managed to get that infrastructure bill done. He voted against enshrining workers' rights into the state constitution. He has worked to make it harder for workers to get decent health care plans and prescription drug plans, which is one of the reasons we've got to make sure we're protecting that at the federal level, okay? And by the way, you may have heard that the Speaker of the House, who I think has been in twice now to support Mackenzie, he said the quiet part out loud the other day. We're coming after the Affordable Care Act. So, and then of course everybody's like, no, we're not coming after the Affordable Care Act. Just like they revised all their talking points on women's reproductive rights. They revised all their talking points when they realized that polling doesn't support those positions. And that 45 million Americans got health insurance thanks to the Affordable Care Act. And when they start talking about repealing it, people get a little weirded out by it. And then it's like, no, we don't really mean it. Well, here's what I have to tell you. When somebody tells you who they are, when somebody shows you who they are, you believe them, okay? So when my opponent, when he voted against all of these laws to protect workers, don't let him off the hook. Don't think he's going to change his tune when he gets to Washington, because there's plenty of people down there that would be happy to welcome him into their fold, and he could be, he could be on the Education and Workforce Committee and take some more anti-labor and anti-education votes. So I just think that it's really, really important. And I just want you to know that I agree that Harris and Walz are going to be as pro-labor as Joe Biden was. And I'll tell you what. Let me just say this. You've all also heard the commercials that are trying to tag Harris with everything that Joe Biden's ever done, right? And everything about him. And I keep thinking to myself when those commercials air, like, how come they're not talking about all the good stuff Joe Biden did? They're not trying to tag her with that. They're not tagging her with the infrastructure law and the CHIPS Act and all those things. Joe Biden's not going to let her forget about labor. Not that I think that Harris would for a second. Her vice president's certainly not going to let her forget about labor. And those of us in the Democratic majority in Congress are going to make sure that she continues the proud tradition of being the most pro-labor president ever. So thank you all. I look forward to coming back as a fourth-term member of Congress, standing with all of you and making sure that we continue to get stuff done for the American people. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, one of the incredible international presidents we have. She may wear NEA blue, but her heart bleeds Eagles green. She's a Philly girl and Philly tough. My mom was a middle school teacher. There is no one who has a harder job than a middle school science teacher. Not just a great teacher leader, not just the head of the PSEA, but the head of the NEA. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Becky Pringle! 5-2 Eagles.
Oh, so Chris whispered to me, he said, Becky, I had the perfect introduction for you. And then we had Susan first. So I'm going to tell her not to say anything because I need to say. Thank you, Senator Coons, for that wonderful introduction. Can we please give it up for two pro-union, pro-worker, pro-public education, pro-children, pro-democracy people in our House? Susan Wiles, yes! And Senator Chris Coons, give it up, give it up, give it up! Yes! So is PSEA in the House? And do we have our neighbors? Labor's NJEA in the house? Is Ashley in the house? Is AFT in the house? Is SEIU in the house? We all in the house. Labor, and we need to give a special shout out to the United Auto Workers for opening their doors to us tonight. Yes, Chris was right. I am a middle school science teacher for 30 none of your business years. And now I have the honor of serving as the president of the 3 million member National Education Association. Let me tell you, there's nowhere I'd rather be than in your company, here with fellow labor union members in my home state of Pennsylvania. Now, I have to say, you know, I'm from Philly. Yeah. So I know tough. But I heard tell that you folks in Allentown, ooh, I heard that you were tough too. And you're not going to take any stuff. That's what I heard. So I'm pretty sure when I ask you, what are you prepared to do? Ooh. Oh, you know we coming to that. You know we coming to that. I know you're going to say, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. So you just heard all of these incredible people talk about what's at stake. But I know I'm preaching to the choir. You already know what's at stake. You already know that our democracy is on the line. You know that. You know that public education is on the line. You know that. You know that union rights, worker rights are on the line. You already know that. You already know that Trump, you know, that's fine. A little louder. That inciter of insurrectionists, yeah, that's the one. That one who put Betsy DeVos in charge of education, yeah, that's the one. The one that said that he would fire striking workers, yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that one. You already know what he will do. Now, you know, there's been a lot of talk about Project 2025, and they talk about it as a blueprint. That's the way they talk about it. A blueprint for what will come. But you all in this hall know it's not just a blueprint of what will come. It is Trump's legacy of what he already did. Let us be clear. He was the most anti-worker, anti-female, women, anti-public education, anti-all rights president we have ever had. But let me ask you this. What are you prepared to do? You're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that Donald Trump gets nowhere near the White House. What are you prepared to do? Whatever it takes. That's what I thought. What are you prepared to do to make sure that we elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? We already know their legacy, don't we? We already know that Kamala Harris cast the deciding vote in the most historic investment in public education ever. We already know she's going to stand up to continue to fight against student debt. We already know that. We already know that Kamala Harris is going to make sure that our kids have what they need and what they deserve. We know that. And joined by Tim Walz, one of us, a fellow educator. Yeah. We know we have a winning ticket, but let me say this. Here's the thing. We not only need to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, but we have to make sure that they are in a position to lead in a bold way. So my NEA folks hear me say this all the time. We're not only going to elect Kamala and Tim, we're going to win all the things. All the things. We're going to re-elect Susan Wild, aren't we? Yes, we are. And we're going to re-elect our incredible Senator Casey, aren't we? Because we know we have to have a Senate and a House so that Vice President Harris and Governor Tim Walz can lead in the way that reflects the beauty of the Constitution of these United States. It is we the people, we the people, we the people, all of us deserve that right to be truly free. So this is what I know you're going to do. We got 3 days in a wake-up. So this is what I know you're going to do. You're going to embrace the words of Cesar Chavez. There's no turning back. We will win because ours is a revolution of the mind and of the heart. We will win, Allentown. We will win. We will win all the things because our children, our babies are depending on us. They're depending on us to be worthy of them. Let's get this done, Pennsylvania! Let's get it done. Give it up for my sister in the struggle, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, Randy Weingarten. Give it up!
Okay. How do I follow that? So, let me take it down a notch. Unaccustomed as I am to speaking, but Becky and I speak a lot together, and we do a lot together. And today, just today, for the first time ever, the Fairfax Union of Educators in Virginia got a contract. Wait, let me start it this way. It's been a 50-year struggle. I've been involved in that struggle for about 10 years. We got, Becky and I, before her Lily and Dennis, we walked the halls of the Virginia legislature to try to go from right to work to even giving folks the ability to collectively bargain. Lee was doing that. April's predecessor, Mary Kay. We kind of act as a family doing this. The first time ever any educator in Virginia got a clause for just cause. First time ever. Now, why do I start that way? You heard Susan before. I got great notes here, but I'm going to rip it. You heard Susan before talk about the difference in the education committees when Nancy Pelosi led the Congress and when whoever these guys are lead the Congress now. Johnson, I think his name is. The difference between trying to create the kind of conditions that workers need to thrive versus throwing out obstacle after obstacle. Hate after hate. You've seen those commercials, those demonizing commercials that divide, that create hate. Other than, and Senator Coons said it, other than one policy that Trump was successful in doing, which was essentially to give a tax cut to the rich. And by the way, in my home state, sorry, I am a long-suffering Giants fan. And it was really quite something to be in Erie and Pittsburgh on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday when the Steelers did you-know-what to the Giants. Yes. The one policy he did was to create a tax cut for the rich. The likes of Jeffrey Yass, you know that name, Betsy DeVos, Elon Musk, all of which are now using all those funds against people like Susan Wild because there's no limit to what they can spend. That's the one policy he got through. And the one other thing he did was to pick a Supreme Court that for the first time in my lifetime, there's a lot of rights that they have changed. My grandkids, of which I have 2, have fewer rights to their lives and their privacy and their decision-making than I do and than virtually all of you have had. For the first time in America, in America's modern history, we have fewer rights, not greater rights. For the first time, the arc didn't bend towards justice, it took things away. Anger versus aspiration. Hate versus hope. Fear versus freedom. Every one of us in this room, we know the difference for when we have a union contract. That's why I started with Fairfax. They know it now. You know the difference when you got a way to create fairness, a way to fight for a few more cents or dollars in a paycheck, a way to fight for sick leave, a way to fight for family leave, a way to fight for pensions. And what we ask our government of is to do the things that Susan was talking about, the things that Chris does in the Senate. We ask our government to help us, not to hurt us. We ask our government to fight for us, not to diminish us, not to demean us, not to divide us. That crap that I saw in my city at Madison Square Garden was unbelievable. My city is not like that. My city is a city that may be hardscrabble, but has a heart of gold. And you compare that crap to what we saw at the Ellipse, reclaiming the Ellipse from January 6th to a better tomorrow. So, I'm saying to all of you this. I know Kamala and Tim well. To the school teachers who were here, at our convention, when she looked at our members and said to them, my first grade teacher came to my law school graduation. My first grade teacher supported me in that way all through my school years. Every single educator in that room understood that connection. When she said to everyone else, she said to the world, the people in this room know what it means to be in a labor union. But I'm saying to all of you, you have a right to be in a union. And then when she said, this is where I'm going to end. When she said, yes, we have to build on what Joe Biden and I did. Yes, we have to build on the reindustrialization that we've seen. Yes, we have to do that. Yes, we have to build in America again. Yes, we have to have more of the CHIPS Act and more of the infrastructure, but we also have to do things to deal with everyday issues, like literally new families, buying a house, having a down payment, new small businesses, having a way of starting, going after the price gougers, creating home care so that those of us in the sandwich generation don't always have to worry about whether our parents are going to fall and break something. This is the choice. Fear versus freedom. Hate versus hope. Anger versus aspiration. But the problem is this, my friends. Everybody who's in this room and who has stood for all of us speechifying, you know. And remember what Becky just said. What are we willing to do? We got Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. The world will be completely different for our members if Donald Trump wins the White House. And the world will be completely better, building on what Joe Biden has done, if Hakeem Jeffries becomes the Speaker of the Congress, if Chuck Schumer stays as the leader in the Senate, and if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz win. They will build on what we've done. But because it's so close, it's up to you. So how many of you are going to knock on doors this weekend? How many of you are going to make phone calls this weekend? I want an amen to all this. How many of you are going to get 5 people to the polls this week and this weekend and on Tuesday? How many of us are going to talk to who we know to talk about the stakes in this election? And if we do all of that on Tuesday night, we will have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as the president and the vice president of the United States, and Susan Wild back in the Congress. When we vote, now, someone who knows a lot about home care and Medicare and all of that, who works so much all over in this country, whose members are always there supporting us when we are the most down, whose members are there for us throughout this country, the president of the SEIU, April Verrett.
Good evening, Allentown. Good evening, Lehigh Valley. Good evening to the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So since we're talking football, just imagine what it must feel like to be a Chicago girl living in Washington, D.C. this week. So I expect some grace from you all because I've had a rough week. I am indeed that Chicago girl. I'm April Verrett, and I'm the proud president of SEIU, representing 2 million hard-working service and care workers across our country. And it's an honor to be here with you all in this incredible space with our union family. I want to start by recognizing the great leadership of our union that's with us. I see our international vice president from 1199 UHE, George Gresham. and the president of Local 668 and International Executive Board member Steve Cadnese. And I can't put names on all of the faces and the purple t-shirts, but I want to recognize the nearly 70,000 workers we represent here in Pennsylvania in our locals, 668, Healthcare Pennsylvania, 32BJ, and Workers United. And so, folks, we have absolutely reached the point in this election where you all must be way past over the commercials, the people at your door, the telephone calls, the text messages, just even on the ride here, me counting the number of billboards and yard signs that I see. So I am not going to stand before you long, and I'm going to endeavor not to repeat what you've heard, because the folks you heard from, the great Congresswoman and the superior senator and these amazing labor leaders, Liz and Randy and Becky, I don't need to say what they have already said so well. You know what is at stake. You know what you have to do, don't you? Yes. So I want to do two things. I want to say thank you. Thank you. Because the burden that is on your shoulders is immense. And I have felt it for a couple of years when I talked to the Pennsylvania leadership of our union. And I hear, ooh, April, I don't know, man. It's hard out here. And you all are carrying that weight with an amazing amount of grace and dignity and pride and stick-to-itiveness, and that we are going to do this. And you are not just doing it for yourselves and your families and your neighbors and your co-workers and your community and your commonwealth. You are doing it for our entire country. Because this place is not just the birthplace of our democracy. This place is going to be the place that helps defend and save and strengthen our democracy. So thank you for that. So thank you for standing in the gap and for making sure we remain a place of freedom and opportunity and possibility for generations to come. So thank you. And I want to talk a bit, not about what we got to do between now and November 5th, because we know what we got to do. We got to knock every door. We got to have every conversation. We got to make every call. We got to get every vote, right? Don't do that. Just a little bit, easy peasy. But come November 6th, in some ways, that's when the hard work begins. That is when the work begins. Because I don't think we're going to have a choice. Like, we are not going to know. Because you are going to make sure every single vote is counted in Pennsylvania. You are not going to just turn out every vote. You are going to make sure this election is not stolen from the people of this country. Our job is not over come November 5th. You got to continue to fight and to stand up for and make democracy not just an idea. Folks, we got to make democracy an action word. Teachers, democracy needs to become a verb. It needs to be something we wake up and we commit ourselves to and that we do and practice every single day. Every single day. And so let's make this democracy live up to the idea, to deliver on the promise that it has for us, but that many of us in this room and across this country has never quite tasted the real promise that our Constitution and our democracy presents to us. But come November 6th, our defending this election and its outcomes to make Kamala Harris the next president of this country and Governor Walz the next vice president of this country, you're going to make sure we do that, okay? And then our work still isn't over, right? We got to make sure we fight for it. In this democracy, in this way, we're going to make it an action word, make it a verb, make it a living, breathing, living thing. We are going to fight for the country we all deserve and dream for and want. Because we cannot sit on the sidelines and just expect, as amazing as the Congresswoman is and amazing as the Senator is, they cannot do it alone. We got to not just be the wind at their backs. Sometimes we got to be the thorn in their sides to make sure we make this country as wonderful as we know it can be and will be and should be. So let's make this a democracy every single day, not just election day, right? Every single day, not just election day. And so as we gear up for these final days, I just want us to not just think about getting from here to Tuesday. Let's think about the first 100 days of a new administration and making it live up to the promise, making it a place where unions can be a reality for all of us, making it a place where health care is affordable and accessible and is quality for all of us, making sure we can have the social service and the safety net that we all need, making sure our public services are sound and that we are all compensated for delivering them, right? All of these things in an education system that treats every single student as they deserve to be treated, and the teachers that deliver that education. And we can do it if we practice democracy every single day. And oh yeah, how about we create a care infrastructure that Senator Casey has been championing, right? And so we will do all of these things with and for each other. So let's go out there and get it, everybody. And you all are so patient and so kind. I think we're almost done. But I do want to introduce the amazing president, international president of AFSCME, my dear brother, Lee Saunders.
Is labor in the house? Is labor in the house? Are you fired up? Are you fired up? I'm not going to speak to you too long. I just want to be a little thought-provoking. Throw out some ideas. Now, I really feel like I'm preaching to the choir. And you're the choir. And you know what you've got to do the next 4 days? You've got to sing like hell every single day, knock on those doors, talk to people, talk to our members, talk to our families. And if we do that, you know what? We will win on Tuesday, won't we? You've got to sing. You've got to sing, choir. This truly is our moment. This is when labor shows what we're made of, what we believe in, and how we deliver. And the way that we deliver, the way that we organize and mobilize and educate our members in our communities, it's not by sitting at home, sitting on a couch. It's hitting the streets. And it's knocking on those doors every single day. And it's listening to what people have to say. But just as important is sending a message. Sending a message to our members, our families, and our communities about the importance of this election. This is when labor shows what we are made of truly. This is when we raise our voices loud and clear. This is when we flex the muscle that we have. This is when we show the real power that we have in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in North Carolina, and Nevada, and in all across this country. If labor comes together and we are together, then we will win. Then we will win. We've got to believe that. You believe that. You believe it. These next 4 days are so important. Because if we get up in the morning, have that coffee or tea, walk out that door with those leaflets, and knock on those doors in our communities, we're going to win. But we can take nothing for granted. And now is not the time to be tired. Now is the time to be energized. Now is the time to be excited. Now is the time to kick some ass all over the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's what we must do. That is who we are. We are union. We fight for what we believe in. We've got the power. We've got the power. 4 days. 4 more days. Then y'all can step back, relax, get some sleep, enjoy the family. But you can't do that now. What you've got to do now is knock on those doors. What you've got to do now is mobilize and organize and educate our communities. Are you ready? Are you ready to do that for the next 4 days? I can't hear you, labor. Are you ready? Let's get the job done. Thank you very much.